Welcome to our Chapter 3 presentation in our project management class, where we are going to be talking about project charters. So to begin with, let's define what a project charter is. A charter, it's not exactly a contract, but it's very similar to a contract. It is a written document developed by the project team and its sponsor. And essentially, it describes what the project is going to be. It defines the scope and it makes a business case for why the project is going to be a good idea. It provides some background information, has some elementary schedule information, giving you an idea of how long the project's going to take. It might also include what some possible risks are, what resources are going to be required, who the stakeholders might be, and things like this. So it's early on in the process. It's part of the initiating phase. So a lot of the details of the project are not yet known very well, but it does give an indication as to what can be expected. So like a contract, the charter is freely entered into by both parties. You need to have agreement and support from everyone involved. Once it's written, you can't just change it. It's a binding document that may be referred back to later in the process. It should be beneficial to all the parties involved. It should provide value to everyone in some way. And it can change. It is a living document that may change throughout the project, but it can't be changed arbitrarily. So there's a formal process. Everyone has to agree to the changes that are made, and so then that way it can be updated as required by the project. So when is a project chartered? It essentially ends the initiating phase of the project. So the charter represents the start of the planning phase. So it's when everybody essentially agrees to start working on the project. So why do we need to go through the formal process of developing a charter? Can't we all just sort of have a handshake and agree to get started? Well, there are several reasons why you might want to have a formal charter. One is it provides written authorization for the project manager to begin working. So the sponsor of the project is essentially agreeing to support the project manager. It helps develop a common understanding so everyone is on the same page. Everybody knows what the expectations are, and there's no miscommunication. It gets everybody to officially commit to the project. You want buy-in from the stakeholders. You want everyone on the project team to be supportive and enthusiastic about the project. And if you are on the steering committee, if you are an executive and your responsibility is to choose which projects to undertake, you might want to look through the project charters of these different projects and might help you realize which projects are good and which are bad, almost like looking at the resumes of job candidates. This is a way to help you screen out bad ones, and as the project charter is being developed, it might help the sponsor and project manager realize that maybe too many resources would be required, the schedule is just not going to work, or for whatever reason, writing the charter may help you to realize that this project is perhaps one you don't want to go after. So additional benefits of a charter include the almost social benefits. You're getting your team together for the first time to work on the project, and they're getting to know each other. So you begin to develop a sense of teamwork, trust, communication. This is really the first opportunity for these relationships between team members to build. And it also helps to relieve some of the anxiety that people might have about a project if they see the charter and they see that there's support for the project and everyone's on the same team. Everybody knows what's going on, and so it can make people more confident in the project they're about to undertake. So, what is in a project charter? First of all, it's not that long of a document. A typical project charter is just 1 to 3 pages. It obviously has the title of the project, as I said before. It's going to outline the scope. It's going to essentially tell you, what does this project involve? It's going to describe the business case. In other words, why is this project going to be a good idea for us? Is it going to make us money? Is it going to save us money? It'll give some background information. It will provide a milestone schedule so that you have a rough idea of how long the project is going to take. It might outline some assumptions that are made about the project and what risks might be involved. If there are any constraints, whether it's resources or budget, that the project is going to be faced with. Again, it's not going to be a detailed budget because the planning phase hasn't really started yet, but a charter might provide some general estimates of what the cost is going to be. It's going to outline the communication plan. So how are we going to communicate about this project? Are we going to have weekly meetings or monthly meetings, or who needs to be updated or kept in the loop? And might also outline some basic operating principles, the rules of the project or the team, and how they are going to work together. It might include lessons learned from previous projects and how they can be implemented here to make the project go smoothly. And then finally, like a contract, all the parties involved with it do sign off. They pledge their commitment to work on this project and give it their best effort. So a project charter answers a lot of questions. The scope tells us, why are we going to do this? Again, the business case tells us, why would we want to do this project? And the background, again, is telling us why. The milestone schedule tells us, when is this project going to happen? Success criteria is going to describe what the project should be like, what it should do, what its function should be in order to be successful. Risks, assumptions, and constraints might give us a moment to pause and think and come up with a plan of how to deal with some of these potential negative issues. Resources answers, how much do we need? How many people? How much equipment? How much money? How much stuff do we need to get this project done? Who are the stakeholders? Who does this project affect? How are we going to go about doing this project? What are the team operating principles? How can we apply lessons that we've learned in the past? And who is committed to this project? Who is signing on the dotted line? The scope of a project, I know I've used that word several times before, perhaps without explaining what it means. The scope essentially is a description of what is involved. What is it that this project is going to do? And perhaps more importantly, what is this project not going to do? Sometimes in a project, you might start off with the intention of doing one thing, and as the project goes on, you, for whatever reason, begin to do a little bit more. And that is an example of what we call scope creep, where you you end up in the end doing more than you originally set out to. And that can be a bad thing in project management. Scope creep causes you to go over budget. It may cause you to delay the schedule. So it's important to make sure that you stick to the scope of the project. You only do what is described in the charter. You don't begin to add on additional things. The business case, as I've alluded to, is essentially the explanation of why we would want to do this project. Is it going to make us money? Is it going to improve our efficiency or some existing process? How is it going to be better than not doing the project? So a lot of times this is used to justify the project, to explain to people why they need to invest in it, why they need to greenlight the project, why they need to be involved. It's essentially a sales pitch. It's describing why this project is so good, how it's going to benefit people, and why they need to be a part of it. A milestone schedule is not a very detailed schedule. It's not going to tell us on what day which activities are going to be conducted, but it is essentially going to give us some goals, some deadlines about when different parts of the project will be completed. And so this is important to know going into a project. People who are going to be involved in the project need to know what kind of time commitment they're signing up for. And the customer wants to know how soon they'll realize the benefits of the project. So the milestone schedule provides that information. Essentially, it lets you know when the planning will be completed, when the execution will be done, when the project will be closed out and turned over to the customer. Now, risk is something that every project is going to have. Oftentimes, we associate risks with negative potential outcomes, things that could possibly go wrong. And so, in that case, project managers need to be aware of it going in, what those potential risks are, so that they can begin to develop a plan to avoid negative risks. But risks can also be positive. For instance, if the project is developing a new product, like a new invention that no one's seen before, being the first to the marketplace with that new service or new product may be a financial windfall. You might be able to make a lot of money by being the first one to exploit that risk. So risks can be positive, they can be negative, and they need to be considered before the start of the project. So I'm not going to read everything that you see on your screen here. I just want to provide this information. This comes from the textbook in order to share with you or give you some sense of what a scope overview looks like or what a business case looks like. So it's a few sentences, maybe about a paragraph in length, that outlines what the project is, how you're going to go about completing that project, and what the benefits of that project are. So we can see we have two examples here on this slide, and on the next slide we have a few more examples as well, just to give you a sense of how much information, how detailed they need to be, because you and your teammates will be completing a project charter in the upcoming weeks. So I'm just about out of time for this video. My videos are limited to 15 minutes because of the software that I use. So I'm going to pause right here and we'll finish up. I believe we will finish chapter 3 with just one more video after this.